And now we will show Ilias Tsiaras and Vasileios Neofotistos presentation about the attitude of adult trainers in Greece about educational live-action role-playing games.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ilias Tsiaras. I'm a physicist, science teacher if you prefer, and an adult educator. I'm very excited to be part of this symposium, even like this through a video. The paper I'm going to present is about the influence of educators' tabletop role-playing games familiarity on the implementation of LARP in adult education. This paper is actually a part of my research for my master's thesis in adult education, where Vasilios Neofotistos was my supervisor professor. Before we get started, let me apologize in advance for my English. Sorry. In recent years, education has shifted from traditional teacher-centered methods towards approaches that emphasize social, psychological, and cognitive development. This transformation prioritizes equipping students with skills for independence, adaptability, and global citizenship in response to challenges like climate change, technological advances, and global conflicts. Key competencies for future readiness include communication, empathy, creativity, and critical thinking, which are essential for a modern workforce and valued by organizations like the World Economic Forum. Researchers advocate for educational reforms that foster diverse talents and creativity, aligning learning outcomes with labor market demands. Educational live-action role-playing games, edu-LARPs, exemplify innovative teaching methods that effectively nurture these skills while also supporting knowledge acquisition. Since we do not have much time, I'm going to assume, hopefully correctly, that everybody is familiar with the term role-playing games, RPGs, and live-action role-playing games, LARPs, and focus instead on what an edu-LARP is. Brank states that edu-LARP is any pedagogical method that uses LARPs as a student activity directly connected to the educational purpose of teaching or therapy. For this paper, since it is focused on adult education, we find the next definition to be rather helpful. The method of edu-LARPs as a dynamic practice is essentially the epitome of experiential learning, that is by Balzer and Kurz. In essence, this research is based on Whitware's notion that LARP, therefore edu-LARPs too, has its roots on tabletop role-playing games such as Dungeons & Dragons, Vampire the Masquerade, Legend of the Five Rings, etc. To make things a little more formal, here is the purpose of this research. It aims to investigate the relationship between educators' experience with tabletop role-playing games and their attitudes towards edu-LARPs. More specifically, it aspires to answer these two questions. Is there a connection between the educator's level of experience in tabletop RPGs and their attitude towards edu-LARPs? And is there a connection between the educator's experience in tabletop role-playing games and the usage frequency of edu-LARPs in their teaching? Okay, so on your left, you can see a schematic representation of the theoretical framework this research was based upon. Attitude is considered to be the dependable variable, which is affected by four notions. These notions are considered fundamental aspects, key aspects if you prefer, of adult education and serve as independent variables. These notions are interdisciplinary, meaning that with edu-LARPs, an educator can teach two or more different subjects simultaneously. Collaboration, meaning that edu-LARPs can promote teamwork. Critical thinking, that means that edu-LARPs can enhance this skill, critical thinking or creativity. And lastly, inquiry-based learning, meaning that with implementation of edu-LARPs, trainees can be actively involved in the learning process. Down in the middle, this is me trying to give it this all to you. So moving on to how this quantitative research was conducted. First of all, we have to say that there is currently little to none academic interest about LARPing in Greece. Moreover, on a global scale, there are no similar researches about the use of LARP or RPGs in general in adult education. So we had to refer to a research about STEM education, a totally different field, since it encompassed the aforementioned variables, and modify the questionnaire that all BASA used. In order to do this modification correctly, we did a pilot survey with a 3-member focus group. Each member was a specialist in his field of expertise. The group included an academic researcher with expertise in edu-LARPs, a founding member of Gamecraft, that is a company that specializes in educational LARPing in Greek museums, and an experienced adult educator. So the actual questionnaire had 32 items that use the 5 points Likert scale. These items corresponded to the 5 variables, and also questions about LARP usage frequency, and of course a demographic section. The research itself was conducted online via Google Forms. The link was published on Facebook, on various adult educators groups. We managed to obtain 2 different licenses in order for the questionnaire to be distributed to vocational training institutes and all second chance schools. Let me just say that second chance schools are educational institutes here in Greece where adults can go to get their diploma in, it's like high school, junior high school for adults that they hadn't completed the mandatory education. So in the end, the sample was 113 adult educators. Let me just say a few things about the data analysis that was employed. Of course, there was means comparison between entire sample and educators with some experience in tabletop role-play games, one-way analysis of variance, and pairwise comparisons between tabletop RPGs experience and independent variables, and a chi-square test between tabletop RPG experience and usage frequency of LARPs. Before we go on to the findings, here's the sample breakdown. About 30% had some experience with role-playing games. Mean age was 32 years old, and most of them work for second chance schools, most of the adult educators, that is. Now, what we did find? We found out that educators who were familiar with tabletop RPGs utilized edu-LARPs more often in their teaching. Educators who were familiar with tabletop RPGs had a more positive attitude toward edu-LARPs in general, and educators who were familiar with tabletop role-playing games thought that edu-LARPs can cultivate the independent variables more efficiently. So let's make that a little more detailed. This is what Kruskal-Wallis test found out. Those who regularly play or used to play tabletop role-play games differ significantly from those who have played only once. And the same is true for occasional players compared to those who played only once. So p-values are below 0.05, so there's a statistically significant difference concerning the overall attitude of adult educators towards using edu-LARPs regarding their level of experience in tabletop role-playing games. We also found differentiation in utilization. Respondents with experience in tabletop role-playing games use edu-LARPs more frequently, with about 74% of occasional and 58% of regular players using them at least 1 or 2 times per month. In contrast, those unfamiliar with role-playing games use them less often, with rate of about 17% for those unfamiliar, 37% for those who never played, and 44% for those who played only once. The chi-square test, meaning a p-value of 0.0747, supports the link between role-playing game experience and edu-LARP usage. Now, about the independent variables. As you can see, there were statistically significant differences in all 4 notions, that is, interdisciplinary, collaboration, critical thinking, and inquiry-based learning. Those educators who had more RPG experience reported higher appreciation for the interdisciplinary potential of edu-LARPs, also influenced the perception that edu-LARPs enhance collaboration skills, that is, educators who had more experience with role-playing games. Also, educators with regular role-playing game experience were more likely to agree that edu-LARP promotes critical thinking. And all these findings also had a p-value that was less than 0.05. So there was, once again, statistically significant difference. This is the means comparison. As you can see, the number on the left is the mean value of the whole sample, whereas the right number is the mean from educators who occasionally or regularly played tabletop role-playing games. The means are greater for those educators who occasionally or regularly played role-playing games, and also the standard deviation was smaller, meaning that their whole answers were focused on a better number, that is the 5 on the Likert scale. So, to summarize these richer findings, Greek adult educators have a positive view of edu-LARPs, even though they do not use it very much. Educators who are experienced with tabletop role-playing games are more likely to use edu-LARPs as they are viewed as an effective approach for adult education. Educators who are experienced with tabletop role-playing games are more likely to use edu-LARPs as they deem them an effective approach for adult education. And all this, despite the fact that edu-LARPs is a somewhat new and yet unknown method, at least here in Greece. As always, there are some limitations. Everything you just heard and read cannot be generalized. This is mainly because the sample was too small. It was adequate for what you saw, but it's still rather small, so there can be no generalization. This research is the first attempt to discern attitudes and perceptions about the use of edu-LARPs in adult education. Since LARP is still a novelty in Greece, this research serves as a valuable foundation for future studies and discussions, and also as a leaflet, if you like, to an innovative teaching method. About future research, we recommend, of course, a broader sample, and try to focus on practical implementation and long-term benefits of edu-LARPs, meaning that this could be the aim of a longitudinal research. So these are some parting thoughts. The research highlights a strong link between educators' familiarity with tabletop role-playing games and their willingness to adopt edu-LARPs as a teaching method. Increased exposure to these games may lead to greater recognition of their value in developing critical skills like collaboration and empathy, aligning with adult education principles. Although edu-LARPs are still largely unfamiliar in Greece, this study suggests that they have significant potential to enhance adult learning through experiential approaches, with future research needed to explore their long-term impact. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, I will be happy to discuss them with you. Here's my email. You can contact me anytime you like. Once again, thank you all so much.
Despite Elias not being there, we thank him and his colleagues very much.